Hey y'all, welcome man, welcome and ting and ting and ting. We're back with another video for you all, and we're gonna go to Ireland, medieval Ireland to be exact. How was life in medieval Dublin? You understand what I'm gonna say? So it's the kind of history of Dublin to a certain degree and thing. So uh, let's go ahead and see what this is all about. Let's YouTube and simmer.
I'm Alice Loxton, and I present documentaries over on History Hit TV. If you're passionate about all things history, sign up to History Hit TV. It's like Netflix, but just for history. We've got hours of ad-free documentaries about all aspects of the past. You can get a huge discount from History Hit TV. Make sure you check out the details below and use the code AbsoluteHistory, all one word, when you sign up. Now, on with the show.
From castles to cathedrals to Celtic heritage, and of course a couple of pints of Guinness to wash it all down. Here's what I'm curious about in Dublin, Ireland.
All right.
What's so important about a black pool? Why is an ancient well near this cathedral so important? Who was Maiwin Succat, and why do we celebrate him with green beer? And what do shamrocks and snakes have to do with it?
Okay.
How does this symbol tell the history of Ireland's religious past?
Okay.
Why is this library so long and so high?
Beautiful.
What's so important about this harp, this document, and this glorious book? What is so important about this post office and this city park? What do the style of these townhomes have to do with the number of people living inside them? And finally, what does Dublin's favorite brew have to do with this church, this university, and this urban oasis?
Oh, I'm gonna enjoy this.
Who, what, where, why, when, and how.
Yeah.
So much to be curious about here in Dublin.
Okay, this is exactly what I was all looking for here, because this is going to tell me things that are, especially in Dublin, because from what you guys said, Dublin is kind of hectic. So, going there and knowing things that I would want to see and stuff like that, this looks like it's going to help me with that. Kind of excited about this. Let's go.
Before it was the home of Irish pride, Irish literary greats, and of course Irish pubs, Ireland and Dublin was home to the Celts. Their influence on Irish culture can still be felt today in the Gaelic language, Celtic symbols, and the Irish spirit. But believe it or not, it is not the Celts who are credited with actually founding Dublin. It was the Vikings in the 8th or 9th century.
Say what?
Even though they came over to Ireland to raid the place. Hey, what you gonna do? Those Vikings settled near a lake named Black Pool. The Vikings called it Difflin, which in Gaelic is pronounced Dublin. Next, we fast forward to much more modern history. In the 18th and 19th centuries, things were booming here in Dublin. The Custom House, Parliament House, and Royal Exchange were all built, and Dublin's iconic Guinness Stout was invented. I mean, what more could you want? Well, how about a lovely little bridge built over the River Liffey, built during those prosperous times?
What?
This is the beautiful Halfpenny Bridge, built around 1816. It's called the Halfpenny because for 100 years, pedestrians would have to pay a halfpenny toll to cross the bridge. There was one stipulation to this toll, though. Apparently, if any pedestrian complained about having to pay a halfpenny, the bridge would be torn down. Well, apparently, nobody complained.
Oh.
The Halfpenny Bridge is a lovely reminder of Dublin in days gone by. When you cross it, you will see the charming Halfpenny Bridge Inn, established in 1732.
Wow.
And you will officially enter Dublin's Temple Bar Historic District, which is neither a temple nor a bar, but is full of colorful pubs, dripping with flowers, a tradition that possibly dates back to ancient Roman times, when vines or shrubs were hoisted high above a pub to tell travelers from afar that the ale was ready.
Oh,
on
man.
the side of one of those pubs, the vibrant Dame Tavern, you will see this giant wall-sized proclamation commemorating one of the most pivotal events in Irish history, which we will learn about soon. But first, we go back to the Middle Ages to visit a church dedicated to a man who, according to legend, loved three-leafed clovers, but really didn't care for snakes. built in the 13th century to honor the patron saint of Ireland. It is the largest church in the entire country, and it's one of only a few medieval buildings still left standing in Dublin, St. Patrick's Cathedral.
The architecture, man.
Well, there's been a church on the site since probably around 450 AD, probably a timber church for centuries. We know by the 9th century there was a small stone church here.
And that small stone church was upgraded to this glorious cathedral in the 13th century. So why is there a cathedral dedicated to St. Patrick on this particular spot? Well, it isn't just because the Irish love St. Patrick's Day.
Patrick is said to have baptized people into the Christian family on this site using water from the well. The well was probably a spring from the River Poddle, which flowed underneath the cathedral until 130 years ago.
And this is the spot where it is believed that St. Patrick performed those baptisms from that ancient river and ancient well. Later, the area surrounding it was considered sacred, so was used as a Christian cemetery. Miraculously, some of those gravestones dating back between the 9th and 11th century still exist today.
This particular one was found exactly on the site of the well that St. Patrick is reputed to have used to baptize people into the Christian family. So it's quite special to us in a way. It's our foundation stone. Of the 6 of them, there's 32 of them in Dublin, and 6 of those are in this building now.
Next, if you look closely at the gravestone, there's an interesting symbol that is associated with St. Patrick. And it's a simple one, just a cross and a circle. When you combine them both, you get the beautiful Celtic cross. The cross, of course, symbolizing Christianity, and the circle in the middle representing the sun, which the Celts worshipped. But what does this have to do with St. Patrick? Well, one legend says he was the one to create the Celtic cross. But there are many, many other wonderful theories about...
Wait a minute now. The middle was the sun, and the cross was the sort of the Christianity mixed in with a little bit of paganism, if I might say. Oh, please don't chastise me for that. I'm just asking a question here because it seems like a little merger of things there, you know. No, the cool thing about this is I've heard bits and pieces of it, but this is I'm getting kind of more in-depth vibe here, and I'm enjoying this. And it seems like it's done by Irish people. Correct me if I'm wrong. You understand what I'm saying, things? That's what it seems like it's done by. Phone is always bloody ringing. But anyway, let's get this going back here. I just got that little tidbit there. I hear something though. As I was watching that stone that he said there was 32 of them left and 6 was in that church, I was thinking to myself, do they let me touch it? Would they let you touch it? And it would be like touching a part of history. But then when you think about it, if you walk on the ground, you're actually walking on history because that's been there. It just haven't been developed by man at the time. They haven't been covered over with modernization. So I guess that stone would be the closest it would be to be of the time. Touched but untouched. Does that make sense? Touched by that person that made it so many centuries ago, but untouched to the point where somebody went ahead and tried to reshape it and stuff like that. But it would be cool to wouldn't it be cool you touch it and close your eyes and you could just be traveled back into the time of that history and live it within your head and thing? Even though you could do that now, but it would be a really strange or good feeling to touch something that old and knowing that it's that old. Sort of using imagination to transform yourself back in that time.
About what the Celtic cross symbolizes. The 4 quadrants could symbolize the 4 stages of the day, or the 4 directions, or the 4 elements. And then there is one more theory that has nothing to do with symbols at all.
Certainly with standing crosses, there may have been a practical purpose in them supporting the arms of the cross.
Yep, It's possible that the circle was added around the cross simply to help hold it up. But before we leave St. Patrick's Cathedral, there's one more curious bit of Dublin history to share.
The other key date in terms of the building is by the 1860s it had fallen into a poor state of repair. So it was restored at that time by the Guinness family, Benjamin Lee Guinness.
That's right, the name Guinness means so much more than a brew here in Dublin. The Guinness family is known for a 6-generation legacy of philanthropy, including housing for the poor, donations to colleges and universities, including Trinity College, Dublin, and perhaps most memorably, contributions to Dublin's beloved St. Patrick's Cathedral. These windows here are dedicated to somebody that has something to do.
You know, it seems to me like rich people of old were very invested in upkeeping things like that. They're not anymore. Tear it down. Let's put up something modern, something space age like, you know what I mean? At least in this part of the world. You know what I mean? But it seems like they had a vested interest back then in upkeeping that. 6 generations of philanthropy. I mean, and they maintaining all this stuff. That's cool. I'll give the rich some kudos for once.
With beer?
Yes, another Guinness connection. So Benjamin Lee Guinness had a daughter, Annie Lee, and she was renowned for her charitable works, and she's remembered with a line of scripture in this window, appropriate enough for a member of the Guinness family. I was thirsty and you gave me drink.
That is so appropriate, so appropriate. Next, as Ireland is known as the land of saints and scholars, we go from church to school. So, from Holy Cathedral to Holy Book, we travel to Trinity College, the
Heard
home
of this
the
college
precious
before.
Irish manuscript, and more curiosities. Trinity College was established in 1592 on the site of a former monastery. It was built in part to compete with England, who of course already had Oxford and Cambridge. So in a way, it was Dublin's way to establish itself as its own prestigious and smart city. Trinity College Dublin is Ireland's oldest university and one of the 7 ancient universities of Britain and Ireland. When it was founded, it lay outside the walled city of Dublin. Hard to believe today, with bustling Dublin bursting onto its campus every day. The college was built on the site of the All Hallows Priory. It is believed that this iconic bell tower, the Campanile, stands at the center of where that old monastery once stood. The Campanile was built in 1853 with 4 figures at its base representing divinity, science, medicine, and law. Over the arches are 4 faces depicting Homer, Socrates, Plato, and Demosthenes, representing the liberal arts. But you'll notice something curious about the Campanile. No students are walking underneath it. Why? Because of the superstition that says if the bell tolls as you walk under it, you will fail your exams.
Oh wow, superstition.
But Trinity College's most prized possession is much, much older than that. It is extremely rare, more than 1,000 years old, and is guarded safely in a curiously long room. This is the famous and glorious long room added to the university in the 1700s. Not only is it more than 200 feet long, it also happens to be sky high. Why? Well, because they kept adding books. Built between 1712 and 1732, the Long Room Library holds 200,000 books.
Wow.
It's reputedly the longest single library chamber in the world. Now, there are bigger libraries, but as a one-chambered library, it's apparently the longest.
All capped off with that lovely barrel-vaulted ceiling.
Originally, it had a flat plaster roof up here, because when it opened, there was only books on this level.
Okay.
But once copyright kicked in, by 1850, they had a problem because the level we're standing on was completely full. So around 1858, 60, they raised the roof, they put this barrel-vaulted ceiling in, and they filled the galleries upstairs full of books.
and only the oldest and most rare books in the library's collection are stored here in the long room.
So we have a page from the Gutenberg Bible, printed in 1453-54. And why we've only one page is because medieval people recycled, and we found it in the backing of a book and released it.
Okay, now that would be a must visit for me, because I'm being a writer myself and I'm into books. I mean, I don't see the shelves of books. You have all the books in a closet in there, you know what I mean? But this would be quite interesting to me. All those old books, I wonder if they have that ancient smell to them, you know what I mean, and thing. But yeah, this would definitely be an interest to me.
And it's not just precious books here, but a very musical symbol of Ireland too, the Irish harp. Also known as the Celtic harp, the Gaelic harp, and the Brian Boru harp, after the 11th century High King of Ireland. The Trinity College harp is believed to be the oldest harp in Ireland. And the national harp symbol on Ireland's coat of arms, the Irish coin, the Irish passport, an entire Dublin bridge, even Ireland's most famous brew, are all based on this very harp.
Oh.
But why is the harp a symbol of Ireland? The Gaelic harp dates back to ancient times when harpists were a symbol of Irish royalty because kings had harpists in their court. Later, in the Middle Ages, the Gaelic harp was banned by the English crown. So, just like the color green, the Irish harp became a symbol of resistance and Irish pride. But even the national symbol of Ireland isn't as rare or as old as another treasure found here in the long room. The Book of Kells is an incredibly rare manuscript of the four Gospels that historians believe was created sometime around 750 to 800 AD. The artwork is so vibrant and so intricate and so beautiful that it has been said that it was created by angels and not by men. Although we have a pretty good hunch that those angels got a little help from some incredibly talented Irish monks. Historians believe that the Book of Kells was written and painted by a group of monks on the remote island of Iona in Scotland. So, if it was created on the island of Iona, why isn't it called the Book of Iona? Because those darn Vikings kept invading Scotland. So, when the monks fled to Ireland, they brought their manuscripts and settled at their sister monastery in Kells, Ireland. Later on, the book was lost, and much later, the Book of Kells was rediscovered and was eventually brought here to Trinity College around 1661.
Wow.
It has been here ever since.
And its fame is from the artwork. It's more beautiful, more sophisticated than anything else to survive in manuscript form from this period.
There's some Celtic imagery in there as well.
Yes, it's the standard art style of the time. So it's sort of this Greek manner, Byzantine style with Irish verse. A lot of that interlacing would be typical of Celtic art.
It is believed that each page took a month to complete, and there's one page that stands out above the rest.
From the Gospel of St. Matthew, there's what we call the Chiro or Kiro page, which is the Greek initials for Jesus Christ. But there's lovely little images. I think some of the smaller images within the artwork is quite unique. For instance, there's a little otter holding the fish in his mouth, which is an early symbol of Christianity. Jesus Christ, the fisher of men.
Now, here's the cool thing about this, you know what I mean? And the more I learn and the more I get to know, it just amazes me of the ancient history of places like Ireland and Scotland and stuff. Yeah, and you know there's an ancient history, but you know, learning about it gives you a sort of connection to it, you know what I'm saying? So it makes you go, wow, you know, because what the history of places that you hear mainly is the ones that are the big powers, you know. You hear their history more than you hear anybody else's history. But when you break them down, you know, like Irish history, Scottish history, Welsh history, and you see how far back it goes and how these people have sort of maintained the historical origins, or there's historical events and things, and nobody, people just don't pay attention to that, you know, that specifically towards that. Like, I wanted to find out. I'm gonna have to go into the history of cities now, more so of the countries that I'm reacting to here, because I mean, I just decided, let me see what Dublin's like. And this is a gem of a video here that I've found, you know what I mean? And it's telling me all these things that I didn't know about. Certain things I know about. Everybody knows about St. Patrick's and the snakes and the fork over leaves and the green and stuff. But this in-depth stuff, man, you know, this is stuff that people should know. And if you know this stuff about these people, then quite possibly we could, you know, sort of have a kind of kinship with them, understanding where they come from, what their past is like, you know, whether it be a hard struggle or not a hard struggle. You know, but in every civilization, there's people who have a struggle, and it's usually the majority of the people. A kinship and an understanding between them, just like how with the Native Americans and the Irish, they found each other across the Atlantic without the internet and all of that, and help each other out. Do you see what I'm saying and thing? And it's just so cool that, you know, and the thing about it is, the more that I learn of people's history like that and pay real close attention to it, more so than I did in the past, the more I'm realizing that we're not that much different. We only see ourselves as different because the modern world is making us think that we are that different, or that we are more victims, or we have the worst struggle, instead of listening to each other's struggle and then working towards having a sort of solidarity, so that the few who may have power wouldn't exploit the fact that we don't know each other and we don't understand that we have pretty much the same sort of evolution through time as far as people is concerned. Let's keep going here.
But the Book of Kells is more than just a treasured work of art. It is a unique source of Irish pride and identity.
To know the Book of Kells is to know the Irish, or to know the Irish is to know the Book of Kells. I suppose it brings together this whole notion of Ireland being the land of saints and scholars, because it's scholars who did the book. And when Christianity came to Ireland, one of the byproducts of Christianity was the art of writing. And writing and storytelling, and a lot of what's in the Book of Kells is storytelling, really is part of our culture. And I suppose that it's brought to life in the Book of Kells.
So, in Trinity College's long room, we have the Gaelic harp, the Book of Kells, and one more very important piece of Irish history, an original copy of the Proclamation of the Irish Republic. The Proclamation of the Irish Republic is a hugely important document to the history of Ireland and to the Irish people. You'll see it proudly displayed all over Dublin, from little framed ones in dusty pubs to huge mural-sized ones throughout the city, to more originals in libraries and Dublin's General Post Office, which happens to be a very important location in the history of Irish independence. This is the historic GPO, or General Post Office, the site of the Easter Rising of 1916, where the Irish volunteers gathered and read the Proclamation of the Irish Republic. Ireland had been under British rule for centuries, and the Easter Rising of 1916 marked the beginning of Irish independence, which eventually led to the independent Irish Free State in 1922 and the Republic of Ireland in 1949. While the proclamation was being read at the General Post Office here at St. Stephen's Green, the Irish Citizen Army, which proudly included women, tried to fight off the well-trained British soldiers. The only problem was that the Irish Citizen Army, although brave, was a tiny group of private citizens. You can still see the scars of the battle at St. Stephen's Green in these bullet holes on the buildings surrounding the park. The Easter Rising only lasted 6 days when the Irish ultimately surrendered. It's hard to imagine that turbulent past as you stroll through this beautiful park today. St. Stephen's Green is Dublin's most popular park with a curious history. It wasn't open to the public until 1880.
Prior to that, you needed a key to get in, and that key was only available to residents of this square. So it was thanks to the generosity of Arthur Guinness, the third Arthur Guinness, Lord Ardalone, that we have this extraordinary park available to us.
And most of those key holders lived here, in these gorgeous Georgian townhouses surrounding the green. And curiously, all that violence between the Irish and the English is intertwined with these stately homes.
It's important to remember that this is the heyday of Dublin architecture. We're talking about the 18th century. So from 1714, 4 Georges reign on the British throne, and they lend their name to this very distinctive style of architecture that is known as Georgian architecture.
Georgian architecture is known by its symmetry and clean lines. Usually you will see Greek and Roman classical elements like columns and triangular pediments over the door. But as lovely as these works of art are, these Georgian mansions were not always so adored here in Dublin.
For many years, it has to be said that these beautiful buildings were neglected by the Irish. After independence, they became synonymous with the old order, the ancien regime, and as such, they were neglected, and in some cases, they were actively maligned.
And another reason these gorgeous mansions were in not so great shape for a time may surprise you. Originally lived in by Dublin's elite, these stately mansions later became tenement housing for the poorest of Dublin by the early 20th century. In one case, it is documented that 104 people all lived in a single house.
Wow.
But fast forward to happier times today, and these mansions have come full circle and have been restored to their original glorious Georgian state.
And at last, the Irish are becoming proud of this extraordinary architecture.
And the best part, neither the modern-day Dublin residents or Dublin visitors need a key to enjoy beautiful St. Stephen's Green in the heart of
That's
Dublin.
a beautiful park. Yes.
But before we leave darling Dublin, there is one more curiosity to explore.
Okay.
Around many parts of the world, including the United States, there's a peculiar tradition of dressing in green on March 17th. Why? Well, for the answer to that, we go back to St. Patrick's Cathedral for the history of Ireland's favorite patron saint. So, who was St. Patrick, and why is he so integral not just to Ireland's religious history, but to Irish culture overall? Well, there are many legends surrounding the life of St. Patrick, but here's what most historians believe. St. Patrick was a Christian missionary who traveled around Ireland sometime in the 5th century AD. While he was not the very first missionary here, he is considered to be the founder of Christianity in Ireland. But before changing the history of Ireland forever, St. Patrick had some crazy adventures, and those adventures are told in this beautiful window.
Starting down at the bottom left-hand corner, it shows Patrick being taken as a captive from his home, his escape to a ship, and coming back to Ireland to spread the
Wow, that's kind of cool.
message.
Now here's the curious part. St. Patrick, the most popular patron saint of Ireland, was neither Irish nor technically a saint, and he wasn't even named Patrick. That's right, it is believed that St. Patrick was born in Roman Britain, and his name was Maiwin Sacat. Once Maiwin Sacat became a priest, he chose the name Patricius or Patrick, because in Latin, pater loosely means father figure. And as far as his sainthood, well, St. Patrick was never actually formally canonized by the Catholic Church. But no matter, it is his missionary work throughout Ireland that he is so justly revered.
Wow.
Next question. Why do we celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and what does green beer have to do with it? Well, it is believed that St. Patrick died on March 17th, 461 AD. So, March 17th became a holy day in Ireland. But why such a fuss in America? Well, because from the 1600s through the 1900s, millions of Irish immigrants came to the U.S., most notably during the Irish potato famine of the 1840s. And when they came, they brought their traditions, including St. Patrick's Day. The first official St. Patrick's Day parade in New York City was in 1762. And that parade continues to this day. But why do we wear green, and what's the deal with the shamrock? Well, the green possibly dates back to this green flag, used in battles against England. One of those battles even gave us the ballad, The Wearing of the Green. So the color became a sign of rebellion and Irish pride.
Okay.
And what about Ireland's iconic shamrock? Well, legend says the Druids considered the shamrock sacred, so during conversion, St. Patrick used the shamrock's 3 leaves to explain the Christian Trinity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Now, whether or not St. Patrick actually got rid of all the snakes in Ireland or would have lifted a mug of green beer on March 17th remains a mystery. From a river of life spanned by a lovely bridge to a curious black pool, loved by some Vikings that gave us the Gaelic name Dublin, which connected to another river that bubbled up into a sacred well that provided a rebirth for the ancient Irish, provided by a saint named Patrick, who wasn't really named Patrick, who later had this glorious cathedral dedicated to him. With curious Celtic symbols in its cemetery telling the history of Irish religion, both pagan and Christian, to a holy book preserved in a scholar's temple and an expansive long room dedicated to expanding the mind. That houses 2 more treasured symbols of Ireland, a Gaelic harp, and a document that began the path to Irish independence. That played out at a post office and a park that was surrounded by beautiful architecture that over time symbolized success, then oppression, then rebellion, then despair, but now is back to its original glory. To a city sprinkled with the help of a generous family whose name is synonymous with Ireland's legendary brew, Dublin has so much to be curious about. Thank you for joining us.
You know what I really like about this here, man? How they took everything historical in different time frames and sort of frame it into this documentary. That was pretty cool, and especially how she summarized it in the end. You know, from those houses that were once rich people's houses, and then it was tenements where people live, or slums, and then back up to the way it is, or even a certain generation not paying attention to those houses because it marks or emphasizes an oppressive time to them, to another generation becoming, understanding of the history and maintaining it and bringing it back up to good standards. This was excellent. I really enjoyed this one here, and I actually learned some stuff that I didn't know. The fact that St. Patrick's, that's not even his name. The fact that he was never really canonized, you know what I mean? And I guarantee you a lot of people don't know that. I guarantee you, especially here, maybe in Ireland people do, I don't know. But here people don't know that, you know what I mean? And I'm watching all these videos on Ireland and all of that and becoming a wealth of information. People might be considered useless here, a wealth of useless information, but it's just cool to know all of that stuff, man. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you guys enjoyed it with me, man. Drop a like on the video. Please comment below on certain things in Dublin that wasn't mentioned here that maybe this giant might want to traverse to. You understand what I'm going to say? In the meantime, you all take care of each other. Oh, and by the way, I'll leave links to other videos I've done, reacted to about Ireland. Take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.